I've been to America, there was one of the most common questions I get was, "Oh, you're from Ukraine. You're losing this war." No, no, we're not. Essentially, Kiev's still
Russian
here.
Propaganda.
This is an administration that doesn't particularly like Ukraine.
Russia doesn't want peace, it wants a piece of Ukraine.
You can't trust that America or Europe are going to really fundamentally stick to those security guarantees.
Today, the world is holding its breath. Ukraine is under huge pressure over Trump's new 28-point peace plan. And battles like Pokrovsk are testing our army harder than ever. To help us understand what's really happening, both on the front line and behind the political scenes, we're joined in the studio by Shaun Pinner, former British soldier, Ukrainian Marine, defender of Mariupol, and one of the people who has seen this war from the inside. Shaun, it's a pleasure to have you here in the studio in Kyiv again.
Thank you very much for having me.
Shaun, so you know that the world and Ukraine particularly was shaken by the ultimatum of American president, by its 28-point peace plan. And the Ukrainian president, he was appealing to the Ukrainian audience, saying that now the Ukrainians are standing in between choosing the dignity or losing the United States as an ally. Why do you think the American president is putting Ukraine on such a hard circumstances?
To be honest, I have no idea, to be honest. I've got, I think it's a difficult one. It's a leaked document for one thing. It's clearly geared up for Russia's wants. There's nothing that benefits Ukraine, even to reduce the size of the military, which is strange. Essentially, I've just seen the propaganda pick up today as well. The Russian propaganda seems to be pushing this. It seems like a very well planned stunt in some ways. Certainly, it leaves a lot of questions open to the Trump administration. I've never been a fan of the Trump administration. I've always said had my doubts, even when Lindsey Graham came to Ukraine and was pushing the killer sanctions. It almost had me. I was almost the most sceptical of us were almost believing that. But then obviously the killer sanctions never came, and suddenly he's flip-flopped again, and now we're looking at an ultimatum, which again is difficult to swallow. This is, we need the United States and we need all our supporters on board. So it's very difficult to see this anything other than an appeasement to Putin again.
Yes, but frankly speaking, 28-point plan, peace plan, it's not a big difference from what we have seen in 2022 with the Russians talking in Istanbul. That was a first-hour attempt of negotiations, which failed, of course. Why do you think Russia would want now to have any peace agreements? I mean, do you think that Washington saw any signs from the Kremlin that they are ready for something? I mean, why we're playing this freaking game, I don't know, out of logic?
No, I've always said he wants Kiev. All it will do, essentially, is even if we did, it's not, I wrote on my social media today, it's not worth signing it. Because one, we've got serious doubts whether America would fulfill those security guarantees, because they're not doing it now. They didn't do it in the Budapest Memorandum. I seriously have doubts whether they would want to go to war with Putin, even if he did reorganise after we'd signed it, regrouped and pushed on Kiev for a second time, a third time even. So I doubt even if, those security guarantees from America are even worth it. So I don't think on that, point alone that we shouldn't trust America, especially since it looks like they've just presented what essentially is a 28-point plan that's written by Putin, and they've not even, doesn't even look like they've changed any of it. It looks like they've just given it, said, you're going to do this, given it to Zelensky and said, you're going to do this.
Why Trump is giving us this deadline?
Pressure.
Nobel Prize?
I honestly believe myself that economic pressure on Russia is really hitting home. I think, it's got a budget deficit. It's now, from what I read, selling its gold reserves to stay afloat. I think there's an awful amount of pressure on Putin. 1.1 million casualties. His Pokrovsk, which we're going to talk about, is literally, under 50 kilometres from where they started the war 4 years ago. It's a massive pressure on Putin, and it looks like he's trying to sell to a domestic audience that is still making progress. He 2 weeks ago announced the encirclement of Pokrovsk. He invited journalists to come and see what's inevitably the fall of Pokrovsk. That hasn't happened. So generally, I think there's a lot of pressure on Putin, more than we're seeing. Or more that's definitely we're talking about.
Yeah, Shaun, we will get back to the Pokrovsk issue just in a minute. I wanted to just ask you, given the fact that to have any negotiations with Russia, it's not possible, with the Minsk agreement or grain corridors, we know that. But do you see any possibility of Kyiv trusting Moscow in 2025?
No. I don't. I've been in. The only way we can essentially win this war is personally, I think, is going to be on another front, economic collapse maybe. Russia have got history in that. I just honestly believe that there's a lot more pressure that can be applied on Putin that should be applied on Putin, but it's just generally not. I've been to America. There was one of the most common questions I get was, you're from Ukraine. You're losing this war. And no, no, we're not. Essentially, Kyiv's still
Russian
here.
Propaganda.
Russians lost 50% of what they gained in 2022. They lost dominance of the Black Sea. Their 8-year foothold in Syria. 1/3 of their tactical nuclear bombers destroyed in Operation Spider's Web. So, they haven't moved on. And this is clearly a pressure move by Putin. He's clearly exploiting Trump to try and get land he couldn't take militarily, here at the Donbass belt, the fortress of Donbass. He's been trying to take that since 2014. He's not taken it. And now he's politically trying to take it and using Trump to really, with things like the 28-point plan, to take that ground he can't take. So essentially, I just think this is another waste of time. And now he's appointed I don't know what you call it, a czar of the 28-point proposal plan, an envoy to that. I mean, this is another guy that it looks like he's hired that has no experience of the region, can't speak the language, doesn't understand what's going on, who's another yes man for Trump.
Yes. But when you're opening social media, Ukrainians are depressed right now. I haven't seen them so depressed since 2022, to be honest, because it's a really tough decision right now to make, and it feels like Ukrainian president now want us to make it. But
certainly the corruption scandal's not helped.
Not helped. But yes, I agree with you. But at the same time, it's better to be revealed the scandal than not.
Absolutely.
I mean, I know it's okay. Yeah. So it's okay that it's not okay when people are stealing when it's war, but it's super naive to think that they are not because of the war. No, yeah. I mean, that's a very hard topic. Could you imagine how much corruption Russia has?
Oh, loads.
But they're just not revealing anything. No, otherwise, you're going to be found dead somewhere in the forest.
No, I put on my social media that it's a system that's working, and that's got to be. If there was a problem here, you would see the repeat protests that you saw in the summer. Generally, it's working, and
Oh God, yes.
Yeah. So there's good. It's a sign of a working democracy and a working anti-corruption agency. So yeah, that is a good thing. But it just. As another thing linked to that is that Trump's used that as a platform to attack Ukraine, which I think has really compromised Trump's real intent. I don't think he was ever intended to help Ukraine. So
yeah, of course, you're right, absolutely. Yeah. He's corrupt as well, Trump. I mean,
I'm not going to litigate myself.
Okay,
so.
good. Yeah, Shaun. talking about the plan, the last one I want to clarify. Experts say the plan could fall apart over two big issues. It's shrinking in Ukrainian army and letting Russia keep the land that it occupies. And from your perspective, would a 600,000 troop limit and a frozen front line simply invite Russia to attack again?
Yes, in the long term, you can't do that. You can't accept that. Essentially, if you do that, you're in the hands of the very people that haven't supported you fully for the last 3 or 4 years. That can't happen. The only thing that's stopping Russia from moving any further into Ukraine is the military. You can't trust, as I alluded to before, that America or Europe are going to really fundamentally stick to those security guarantees. I mean, they would be doing it now with the Budapest Memorandum if they were going to do it, and they didn't do it then. And in fact, you know, America have extracted from that. They supply NATO with weapons. They don't supply Ukraine directly. We've had Trump hold, even before he was a president, you know, held back artillery shells and weapons. You know, this is an administration that doesn't particularly like Ukraine.
Yeah. So basically, what we're going to see if we're going to accept it. So the weaker Ukraine, the stronger Russia, which almost a guarantee that we're going to see a next war in a few years.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that he will regroup, reorganise. Even if there is a peace plan, he's, you know, clandestine units will still work to try and undermine and try and you know, overthrow the government in Ukraine. It's, you know, he isn't scared of NATO to a point. He doesn't want to get in a direct conflict with NATO. But I'm pretty sure that, you know, he pushes the boundaries with, you know, Article 5 flying drones into Poland. Recently, they've just attacked the railways in Poland. I'm pretty sure that that won't stop. That'll increase. So ceasefire, there's not going to be a ceasefire. Even if there's a ceasefire, there won't be. He'll still keep pushing, testing, and then he'll rebuild his forces and then and give it another push, you know, a few years. I mean, one of the things that really was quite repugnant was the amnesty for war crimes. I mean, that is just horrendous. That really made me feel quite sick when I read that. These guys that tortured me, tortured my colleagues, execute soldiers, torture civilians, stolen children, want an amnesty. And that was one of the points. And I was just thinking, this is just wrong. And, you know, and Trump supported it, which I think is really, truly disgusting.
Yes. I just saw in the morning a picture of a Ukrainian man who was waiting in Ternopil for his dead wife and 2 kids just to take out from the rebels. And they were laying down and you know, the savers, they just could not find them for 2 days. So the thing is, I was like, yeah, I was thinking the same. It just...
I never thought in my lifetime I would see in America really do that. And I think one of the things that I tried to allude to was that Ukrainians are so polite. They now bracket them as the Biden lot, you know, the Trump administration. And when things go right, they call it America. So, you know, it's like 3 different versions of America at the moment, which isn't a good thing for America. You know, that's not a good position to be in where, you know, people don't want to offend you and are now splitting your country down into three parts.
I saw a picture, actually, also on the internet today, which shows that Russia doesn't want peace, it wants a piece of Ukraine.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, Shaun, regarding your latest, very interesting, insightful article about Pokrovsk. In your piece, you compare Pokrovsk to Hougoumont, a small point on the map, you know, that end up shaping the whole battle. Why do you believe Pokrovsk has become that kind of a pressure point in this war in Ukraine?
Well, Hougoumont was a farmhouse, a significant point on a map that held back Napoleon's imperialist dreams. He lost the Battle of Waterloo. It was really a comparison I made because I'd been to Pokrovsk a year ago this month, and really the Russians were 8 kilometers away from the city. So fast forward to 12 months later, they've only covered 8 kilometers to get into the city. I wanted to draw people to the realism of how long Pokrovsk has been holding. I mean, it was July last year, I believe, that the offensive started on Pokrovsk. He wanted to take it by November last year. When I was there, they said it wouldn't hold. Christmas last year, it wouldn't hold. 12 months later, it's still here. It's drawing in Russian troops, a considerable amount of Russian troops. And still, even after Putin's press conference saying he'd encircled Pokrovsk, it was over, we're just mopping up, they still haven't taken it. So, you know, I've been in a pocket, I've been in Mariupol where we had a 200-kilometer encirclement. It's very hard to know that nobody's coming for you, and you have to get up every break you have to get your guys motivated to still keep fighting even though nobody's coming for you. Eventually, you know, you can't instruct people to do that. That's driven by a want for the greater good. People want to defend because they know that if Pokrovsk falls and they fall back, it's going to be another town, another city that takes the Russian assault. So people want to hold. And if it's successful, putting my military head on, if it's successful and it's killing enough Russians, more so than Ukrainians, then essentially it should be kept open for as long as possible if it's achieving its goals. The problem comes if it's not achieving its goals, then you've got to start asking questions about the leadership. Why haven't we pulled back? Why haven't we moved back to areas that would be more strategically beneficial for us? So I can't answer that. The Ukrainian military and the headshed in the HQ and they need to. They probably know better than me whether that's still effective. Pokrovsk is still effective.
Yeah, because despite the fact that the city doesn't exist anymore. I mean, it's in ruins.
No, it's not. It's a position on a map now. I mean, it's the crossroads. The Russians will build the rail links again if they are successful in taking it. They will build the transit routes, but generally, it's not going to change the face of the war. It's not going to be an ultimate collapse because behind it are second, third, fourth lines. If Russia do take the cross, they have to do the whole thing again. And they've already lost 1.1 million soldiers. So they're going to have to push on. And, you know, has Putin got enough room to maybe lose another million soldiers, sustain another million casualties over the next 2 or 3 years? Has he? I don't know. Everyone's got their limit, which is, again, I'm looking at this push for, using Trump politically to try and get land he can't take militarily because maybe he doesn't have that room. Maybe there is a lot of pressure in Russia now for him to find an alternative because the economy's teetering. I mean, even their own forecasters are doom and gloom. So, there's a lot of things in play here. It's not, I said the future may not be a battlefield win, but could be economically, it could be politically, there's a lot of other fronts being fought here where we might see the end to this war. Yeah,
you're right. And you said also that Ukraine is making Russia pay dearly for every meter, but with Ukrainian forces outnumbered 8-1 in this sector, how sustainable is this strategy?
I talked about this last week on another episode. I said before drones came about, when I was in the military, if you were an assaulting force, you could expect to lose 3 soldiers for every one of the defending force. What you've got now is the advancement of drones have probably turned that into an advancing force losing 6-1, 8-1. So essentially, it's so dangerous, the front lines now, for a soldier, especially around the area of somewhere like Pokrovsk, which is equivalent. Some of your listeners won't know East Anglia, but it's flat in England. It's a flat area with lots of ploughed fields, minimal cover, stripped woods, very similar to the country areas around Pokrovsk. Farmland, very difficult to get through when it's wet. This time of year, as winter's coming, for an aggressor army to keep moving around Pokrovsk, it's extremely hard, especially with the drones and the innovations that Ukraine's making. So essentially, what was 3-1 when I first joined the army, before phones were invented and used mobiles, essentially now is probably an advancing army And you can go back as far as Mariupol. When Mariupol and the 2002 invasion happened, drones were taking out important bits of equipment. They were taking out artillery pieces, vehicles. Now they're taking out people, individual people. So this is where the quantity and the amount of drones is now probably, for an aggressor army, they're losing 6-8 to 1 when they go on the advance. It's very difficult terrain. So I don't think, even if we pulled back from Pokrovsk, it's going to change a great deal. Russia's going to lose a hell of a lot more people over the next couple of years. It still wants to continue and push this SMO. Hopefully that makes sense.
Shaun, about what Russia is lying regarding battlefield?
What is lying? I think its logistics chain is really struggling. I think its own manpower is struggling. I think you can see from the propaganda and the fact that 2 weeks ago, he was saying that, Pokrovsk had fallen. It was just a matter of time. Come to journalists, come and see the encirclement. I will show you. And, it's gone quiet because the propaganda is overtaking what the capabilities of Russia is actually doing. We have problems with manning in Ukraine. I'm not going to say it's perfect. We need to sort the manning issues out. We need to address some issues in Ukraine. But, essentially, the Russian propaganda machine is overrunning the capabilities. And that's been the case since 2022. Even the Western media really oversells Russian capabilities and overestimates the Russian military and underestimates the Ukrainian military still 3 or 4 years on. But we are going through an extremely difficult time. Pokrovsk essentially is street-to-street fighting, which is similar to Mariupol. It's very violent, very attritional. It's down to, I wouldn't want to be a Russian assault in a position around because Ukrainians are generally, are backed into a corner, and it's always hard to fight an army when you're fighting against the military that is backed into a corner.
Right. Do you remember, Shaun, a few days ago, CNN posted a video when Russian soldiers were going to Pokrovsk on motorcycles, mopeds. Yeah, it was like a scene from movie Mad Max. Do you think that was what did that tell you about their army? I thought it was improvisation. That I thought, okay, if we don't have any heavy armor, what does it tell us?
Well, I read somewhere the OPSEC was dreadful because they just got attacked straight after the video was published. And
really?
Quite a few on the routes in, they were attacked on the routes in around that area where they published that video. It shows you the state of the Russian army. I mean, we've known for some time using donkeys and in one case a camel.
Do you think it's that bad?
I think it's incredibly bad. I don't think it's reported enough. There are some good units. However, cab bombs are a massive problem. Russian drones and fibre optic drones are a terrible problem. It's not, they don't put any stock or value in infantry. They never have done. It's centralised command. It's very, the standard of the infantry has been really diluted. It's now full of, foreigners who were being brought in by the truckload in Russia. To Russia from the poorest areas of the world. It's not the Russian army anymore. Essentially, they're not soldiers. They're just people that were, immigrants, foreign fighters, the people that were washing cars, IT workers. It's not essentially, most of them are not essentially lifelong military people anymore. They've gone through a whole army. So they're very poorly trained, very poorly equipped. And that's why they don't really, a lot of them, it's always going to be harder fighting in another country and keep believing in what you were doing as an aggressor military. And a lot of the war crimes we see it's systemic in Russia. The war crimes are systemic in Russia. But it can be also a sign that there's a lot of discipline problems within the Russian military. They could be struggling, which would explain why they don't seem to be, after 2 weeks, really doing what you would think an army would do if they're encircling somewhere like Pokrovsk.
So, discipline problems is the cause of it?
One of the causes probably, yeah. I mean, lack of training, lack of equipment. The Ukrainians are hitting logistics behind those areas. You've got the fuel refineries being attacked. So it's difficult to supply those routes, probably from a Russian's perspective, which is what you want to do as a, if you've got an aggressive army coming in, you want to hit those ammunition dumps and those fuel tanks and stop really the ability for the Russians to supply ammunition to the front lines, which is what Ukraine is exceptionally good at doing. Which it slows down the advance, demoralises the enemy and crushes the morale. Which are some of the videos you see, that you see online of soldiers drinking puddle water because they're not being supplied water, things like that. And now they've got outbreaks of cholera. So, it's like, a lot of these things don't get the media attention. I'd probably get it more here because I'm an avid watcher of the news. But to someone at home or UK or in America, they probably don't know any of this stuff. They just see, Russia's losing. And not exactly, no.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, I was thinking if Russia's not even advancing on the battlefield or not as they
minimal.
are... Minimal.
Yeah,
they do slowly, but it's not like how they're picturing it. But at the same time, they are advancing in the informational battle.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's not changing. It's a strong super machine. And I think probably now we see that. They are just using everything against us. Corruption scandal, of course.
Yeah, of course.
And so I think if they are not strong on the battlefield, they are using every other tool.
Absolutely.
And targeting civilians.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that smacks of desperation. I mean, to keep targeting civilians, I live in Dnipro, so I don't really, talking to people, see the atmosphere changing. I try and talk to the West about how large parts of the day you wouldn't even know there's a war on. But Putin wants the West to think he's, smashing Dnipro every single day, and it's now like the Blitz, and, it's like London during 19... Just isn't like that. I mean, it's exceptionally bad when the rockets and the drones come in and people die. It's terrible. But it's not, Putin wants to take that and amplify it to a far worse degree to the West. And that's unfortunately where we're trying to battle that through the propaganda war. I mean, it's an exceptional amount of money he spends on propaganda, probably more than he does Russian healthcare. So it's
definitely
it's a machine for sure, and we're trying to combat that with visits. We're arranging a visit to America in spring of next year, and to try and take survivors over with us to talk to the media circuit over there about what's really happening over here, because there's a lot of support in America for Ukraine. It's just really bottlenecked through Trump that it looks like there's no support, and that's not the case at all.
No, I know there is a lot of support, especially in the United States and among the European partners as well. Yeah, finally, as long as it's war for attrition, definitely. I was thinking about the plural system that we have when European leaders are buying the weapon from the United States to Ukraine. It calls plural. So. Do you think that's the best option for us when, we have to wait when the European leaders are going to order, the United States will give a green light, or we just don't have any other options and we have just to accept it as a...
Europe's got enough money. Whether it changes its stance on it now, I don't know whether it's forced into it. We can definitely do that. I have my own personal views, but yeah, Europe could essentially manage Russia. It just doesn't. It's not. I'm not American bashing or anything like that. I'm as much of a critic as Europe as I am America. It's just that America has this such power as freedom and democracy, that it's now moving away from that. It's not. It's looking at putting in peace proposals and suggesting amnesties for war crime. America's not the America I grew up with, in the 80s and the 90s. It's not the ambassador for freedom and democracy anymore. It's not a world player. It's extracting itself from that with, firstly, its soft power with things like USAID, and humanitarian work. It's leaving big gaps for China and Russia to move into. So it starts with things like soft power, and now it's moving more into not supplying, support for Ukraine. It's even teetered on talking about, is it worth staying with NATO anymore? It's looking to isolate itself. It's burning bridges with allies. And
that's what we have done with the UK 100 years ago.
Yeah, America's sort of shrinking in that aspect of it. And the more this goes on, but except now he seems to be pushing a Russian agenda, which is really off. It's extremely off. And now I think generally now people are starting to ask questions. Those people that were sitting on the fence and sort of saying, Trump could be good for Ukraine before his inauguration, and now looking at it, asking those questions, I think.
Yeah, you're right. Well, I don't know for how long we're going to speak about the American president seriously. I mean, pretending he's the person who's going to help us. But okay, I think let's round up. Thank you so much, Shaun, for your time. Again, I really appreciate it that you're coming to our studio. I love it. Our audience love you. And so thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Hopefully I'll give them some good news soon.
Always, always. Good information. You just putting everything on its places intellectually. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.